To the income stream. Today we're talking about how to use Instagram, more specifically how to use Instagram for your business, but whether you use it for mostly personal stuff or you're trying to grow an account to build a following, this is the stream for you. So if you're watching the replay, thanks so much for sticking around. We are here with a live chat, as you can see. We're going to be interacting. We're going to be answering some questions. I am going to go through a lot of this with you because that's what it's all about. How to use Instagram, especially for business. Welcome in today. Thank you so much, and let's enjoy the show.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Welcome in today. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're safe, and hope you are excited. Because we have a lot to talk about today. We've been holding back on this topic for a while due to a lot of recent events that needed to be spoken about. But we are back on our schedule this week, talking specifically about different platforms in social media each and every individual day. Now, just to tell you up front, I'm not an expert, like the expert on all of these things, but all the things that we're going to talk about this week. Tomorrow we're talking about Twitter. Today we're talking about Instagram. We'll talk about Facebook and groups and such. These are things that I do have experience with, and I am just pulling from my own opinion and from my own experience and from all my learnings over the years, and I want to pass that on to you, especially the mistakes I've made too, and whether you are already on these platforms or not. Mind you, I'm not telling you should be on these platforms. I think the most important thing, like we talked about a couple weeks ago when we were sharing best practices in terms of where you should put your time and where you should be spending most of your effort, is you can't be everywhere all at the same time. And I think all of us have experienced that before, trying to be everywhere all at the same time, because we feel like we have to be, because there's our audiences who prefer one platform over another. But if they just get 10% of you on 10 different platforms, they're not getting the full extent of you no matter where they're at. So as a reminder, you might remember I recommended that you have one main content platform that is your hub, where you have a little bit more control. For example, your website or blog or your podcast or your YouTube channel, for example. And then you have your social media accounts as sort of like branches or arms to support that too. So we're going to talk about, like I said today, how to use Instagram, especially for business. But before that, I want to welcome everybody here in the house. Louis B says, I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. No. That reminds me of a scene from Saved by the Bell, by the way. Francis Taylor says, morning, Pat. What's up? Good morning, everyone, says Glenn. Hey, Pat, hoping you cover IGTV too. We will be talking a bit about that. Thank you for asking and making sure. Let's see. Dogs are the best friends says, awesome topic and timely as I try to figure out how to share my new episodes of my podcast and helpful info about dogs, training, and so on. That is awesome. Your beard is looking neat, Pat. Thank you, mine. I did trim it yesterday after a good 2 weeks of not doing that because I was looking a little mountain man-y. No offense to mountain men out there, but it was getting long for me. Bernard says, note for live streams, wait at least 5 seconds after starting because some people get ads that can be skipped after 5 seconds. I appreciate you. There's also other people who don't get ads, those who are on premium, for example. And so you don't miss anything in the first 5 seconds. Just keep that in mind, but I thank you for that. And then a couple more welcomes. This platform is exactly what I need right now. It's YouTube and IG for me in this season. So thanks, Pat Flynn. You're welcome. And let's see. Welcome, share, welcome. Good morning. Building a bassoonist. Nice. A very underrated instrument, in my opinion. Nice, Pat Flynn, says Jamin. Okay, and we got all the usual amazing people here in the house. And again, make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. You can click on the subscribe button below. Make sure you hit that bell notification icon too, so that you get notified when new content comes out. I will be having some pre-recorded content coming out this week as well. It's not just lives this week. Last week it was just all lives because that's all I could have time to do and all I was thinking about. So let's get started here. First, let's talk about why Instagram. Why is Instagram something we should even be paying even a little bit of attention to? And for me, I was a little bit late to the game on Instagram after it came out, and I was mostly spending my time on Twitter. Twitter was really neat because it was easy. It was 140 characters back then. Then they upgraded to 280 characters, but it was a quick and easy way for me to connect with my audience, and you'll hear from me more tomorrow. I used it a lot to answer people's questions because instead of having people send me emails, they could send me 140 characters, which forced people to ask questions more precisely and concisely, and I could reply more concisely too. It just made customer service a lot easier, and I do know a lot of people who use Twitter for that reason. So more on Twitter tomorrow. But Instagram is really interesting, and in fact, there's a very interesting story about Instagram and how it got started. It actually started as a whiskey/bourbon app. I don't know if you knew about this, but this is actually true. A company created an app to essentially build a library of one's bourbon and whiskey collection, and within that app, there was a picture-taking mechanism. And within that picture-taking mechanism, there were particular filters that one could use. And of course, that is the thing that people loved and used the most. And so they pivoted, they adjusted. It then became Instagram, where you could share not just your favorite whiskey or bourbon or alcoholic drink, but your life and pictures. And that's really the power of Instagram, is the pictures portion of it, right? It is what is seen, it is what is the taking up the most real estate, and that's what it's for, and that's what people are great at on Instagram. I am not, again, an expert, but I do love how simple it is to use, as well as how neat it lays everything out. And I think that we have to realize that also on the receiving end of Instagram, we are seeing these pictures as if it's like an open window into a person's life, right? But on the other side, and what a lot of people don't like about Instagram, is that it really showcases a very filtered and edited version of what a person wants to show you about their particular life too. So on the consumption end, I personally have had to work really hard to realize that, especially when I follow big entrepreneurs and inspirational people who share their most amazing things and the people they're connecting with. For example, I follow a lot of podcasters who interview some really amazing celebrities, and I'm like, wow, how do you get access to that? And sometimes it can get me down. I know Instagram and social media in general has led to a lot of depression for a lot of people, because we often can play the comparison game, right? Our life versus somebody else's life on Instagram. But you just have to remember that you are comparing your life to somebody else's highlight reel, and that is apples and oranges, right? Or apples versus a very specific apple that somebody picked out that is very shiny and neat and washed and clean and filtered, right? So that's just kind of what we have to realize when it comes to Instagram. But Instagram is great for connection. Instagram is great for showing up and being a part of a conversation. Instagram is great for building a community and building authority. Instagram is great, in my opinion, for research and for connection. So there's all these different reasons. And for those of you in the chat right now, whatever is your favorite reason or why you show up on Instagram, let me know. Now, the truth is, if you build Instagram or build up an Instagram account specifically to make more money, it can happen. We know a lot of people and influencers, right? That term, who spend their time on Instagram and do make a lot of money. They make a lot of money from brand deals and sponsorships. They make a lot of money from showcasing bits and pieces and parts of their brand to their audience. But the ones who are successful, at least on the business side, not necessarily the influencer side, are always starting their accounts specifically to show more of how they can help others, to show more of one's personality so that we can create a better connection with our audience. Less so about just ramming offer after offer in front of our audience's face, because a person's Instagram account and their feed is very protective. It's something that they're very protective of, right? So we often can just block somebody in just a quick moment because we're starting to see stuff that we don't want to see. We like our Instagram feeds clean. We want to feel good when we get on Instagram. We want to scroll through and see only the things that we want to see. So when we see something that's very pushy or aggressive, it can often come across as very pushy and aggressive, and that's not what we want on there. There's less room for that on Instagram. So Instagram, compared to some other platforms, if we have offers, for example, shouldn't share too much of the same exact message. You can share the same offer, but you have to share it in different kinds of ways, if that makes sense. So a lot of great conversation happening here in the chat, which is great. Karma's saying, I don't use Instagram that much, just to post some random pics of my life. I've never decided what I'm going to use it for. And for me in particular, and I think we all have to have our own specific reason why we want to use it. And yes, you can use it to grow your business, but people aren't going to follow you because you want to grow your business. They're going to follow you for other reasons that you have to find out. And for me, what helps me on Instagram is just realizing that this is a way for me to, if people find me on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, on my blog, or elsewhere, this is a way for people to get to know me as a person a little bit more, because that's my strategy on social media and in business. How could a person understand me as a human, and how can I understand you as a human so that we can better connect? Because as my buddy Chris Ducker says, it's not B2B anymore or B2C, it's P2P, person to person, the person to person connection and relationship. And you are 100% original. Nobody is like you. So I often will share bits and pieces of my life on Instagram that I know are unique to me that will then allow me to build a stronger relationship with my audience, if that makes sense. Now, here's what's hard about Instagram now. What's hard about Instagram is that, and even more and more now today, there's a lot of noise for sure. And how might we get a person who is very protective of their feed to want to follow and subscribe us? And again, I think it has a lot to do with our messaging and how we connect with other people on the platform. A lot of my work on Instagram has been very under the hood, in fact, in terms of it's not, and you'll see if you go to my Instagram, I'm not very consistent. I think that when I've been consistent, I've seen higher numbers. That's just going to be the truth no matter where you're at. And it can be difficult. That's what's hard about Instagram, is staying consistent with the messaging, because it takes time, and we all have other things that also require our time too. So a lot of people struggle with Instagram because it's like, oh, it's just something I got because, and you let me know, Chad, if this is something that relates to you too. You just got it because everybody else was getting it, and you've been kind of posting here and there, and you're not quite exactly sure. You're not necessarily measuring anything. You're not paying attention to the analytics. You are sort of connecting with people every once in a while, but you're not consistent. It's just kind of there as sort of an afterthought, because there's other things that are very important too, like your business, your website, your other social media channels that perhaps you have more excitement about. But Instagram is something that is hard because to perform very well, you do have to remain consistent on the platform. There is an algorithm at play, much like on all these other social media platforms too, that will not penalize you for slowing down, but in a sense, it feels like that. It essentially is the opposite. It rewards you for showing up. It rewards you for showing up. So Mary here saying, yeah, I was on IG for 8 hours a day for 3 months. Wow. Burned out. I'm getting burned out too. just hearing about that. That's incredible. Deb says, I like this idea of having potential clients getting to know me as a person. Yes, and not just publicly, but you'll see in some of the strategies I'm going to share with you privately as well, getting to know each other, because a lot of people want attention, and IG and social media is an easy way to give attention, right? It's like, I always equate social media to like a party, right? So you're at a party, and at a party you go to, you're going to see different clusters of people, right? So there's like a party on Instagram, a party on Twitter, a party on LinkedIn, a party. So just consider each of these social media platforms like a party, for example, right? And so you're at a party. The last thing you want to do is go up to a group of people, right? Because there's groups. Not everybody is equally spaced out, right? Unless it's because of COVID and it's 6 feet apart. But anyway, there's clusters of people, right? Like you have this group of people here who kind of know each other already. They're having a conversation. There's a group over here. There's a group in the kitchen helping out the host. There's a group over here in the living room sitting on the couch playing a game. There's a group sort of in the backyard because they're barbecuing or whatever. There's groups, little groups, and that's party, right? Just like on social media, there's groups of people having clusters of conversations about different things. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to go into these groups and go, hey, my name's Pat. Do you want to buy my Tupperware? Like, you are going to get shunned. You're going to get their backs turned to you because you're not adding to the conversation. And that's the hard thing to do that we entrepreneurs forget, is that it takes work to get invited into the conversation or to show up and provide value so that people are welcoming, versus what often happens is you go in, you start pitching your stuff, even if it's relevant, even if it is helpful. You haven't yet earned the right to share what you have to offer yet within those groups. You have to work a little bit harder to get invited into the conversation, which means asking questions, interacting with people, sharing maybe thoughts before telling people to go elsewhere. Too many entrepreneurs are like, every day, the only posts are just repurposed posts of their stuff, or, hey, pointing to their blog, pointing to their latest podcast episode. And that stuff works. But if that's all you're doing, you're not going to get invited into conversations. You're not going to be welcomed at all. So we want to go in and have conversations and add value. And that's hard because it takes time to do that. It takes time to do that, right? So that's the party scenario. And when you start to get interested in what other people are doing, when you start to get interested in these conversations and joining them and just being a part of the community, then people will start to get curious about what you have to offer, right? And that's where then your bio comes into play, and sharing thoughts and ideas with people. And I think it's really important for you to, whatever industry you're in, to follow the top Instagram accounts. And hopefully you're following them on Instagram already, because you can get an idea consciously about what's working for them and what's not working for them. And again, I'm not saying that you should never post a promotional item on social media, but even then, I still try to avoid that because I want people to get to know me. And you have to, like Gary Vee says, jab, 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 pff, right hook, right? And the right hook comes only after you jab. If you just start a fight, right hooking, you're going to get blocked and sucker punched, right? Let's see. Last year, one of my assistants ran ads on IG to tell people to stop using IG, and his channel blew up. He got mad and shut down his page. That's really funny and kind of ironic. I got Instagram to see more piano guys posts. That's really cool. Is Instagram the new TikTok clock? TikTok clock? Is that the dance move that goes like this? I don't know what you're talking about exactly, but TikTok is another thing, right? And I'm not a big expert on TikTok. I do know some people who use it very well. Shalene Johnson's great. And again, it's the same thing though. How might you build a relationship with people on the other end? So how might we get started on Instagram? I think the most important thing, and obviously you want to get your account, and you might not be able to get your name, but you can get a version of your name, for example. And you want to make sure that you fill out your bio and you have a picture in there, and you start filling out your content, right? And having a content plan can work very well, but making time for it is going to be key if you want this to be successful. And it doesn't have to be that much time either, especially when it comes to communication. Blocking out a specific amount of time every day to start out, just to be active and to learn and to see what works, see what doesn't. That's another beautiful thing about social media, is it gives you a chance in a much easier way than creating podcast episodes, creating blog posts, creating YouTube videos, to see what people are interested in and to see what is actually popular and to see what's not popular. And you'll get a sense and an idea of what works and what doesn't, after a couple months. And then you can determine, okay, let's do more of what does work and then less of what doesn't. And for those of you who have Instagram accounts already and you've been fairly consistent, I'd recommend you go back into your previous year of content, both on IG stories, IGTV, and also your regular Instagram posts, and see what has been working for you and what has not been working for you. For me, what's been really working in my account is being open and being very honest and authentic about certain things related to things that are happening in the world right now. And there was a time where I was just kind of posting what I was eating for breakfast and what I was eating for lunch. And that kind of stuff is interesting. And yes, people can get to know me. And of course, the messaging and the caption with the image is really key too, because you can make any image interesting by saying things that relate to that. And if you can tie it into something related to your audience, then that works well too. But just putting up an image and just go, two eggs with bacon over medium, yay. That's not gonna really do anything, versus maybe a story behind that bacon and eggs, or an idea that maybe when you were a kid, you hated breakfast, you didn't eat breakfast, but now you realize how important it is. Thank you, @Reef. I appreciate you for the super chat. That is very, very generous of you, my friend. But it's going to take some time for you to see what works and what doesn't. And it's the captions that really can make a big difference. The image is to capture the caption is where the teaching happens, right? People don't scroll through and read the captions. They scroll through and read the images. And that's another hard thing. How do we create nice images? I know a lot of people who spend time actually doing photographs to then bring into their computer, to then bring into Photoshop, to then export and put into their device to then share. And that's how important images are. Thankfully, we have these filters and we have now really good cameras that we have access to that you can take some really nice photos. And again, that's the moment of distraction, like I often talked about on, for example, Platform Week, where we talked about on YouTube. It's the thumbnail and title. That's the distraction. That's the moment at which a person will stop their thumb and go, whoa, what's that? Let me read more. If it is a blog post, it's the title and the image to go along with it. If it's a podcast episode, it's essentially just the title alone or the description of your podcast, if people are finding that for the first time. On Instagram, the moment of distraction is the image that goes along with it, right? So mind you, when a person's on a phone, and Instagram is used 99.99% on the phone, we just scroll up and we find interesting images. One quick tip that I have is I've really love that we've been able to have more portrait-sized images versus just square. And I've been testing this recently just to pass this on to you. But I'll take an image that is usually a landscape image, and I'll sort of crop it so that it's portrait. or I'll just create a portrait image and of whatever it is I want to share. And then that actually gets more real estate versus a square. So more of your picture will show up on a person's feed. There's just more length to it. And that has been working really well to capture people's attention and to have people sort of see more. I also think that it's important to realize that if you have multiple photos, trying to get people to click on the next one, not just having like a gallery, but having a person, like having a reason to click. And in your description, sharing like before after photos, or having even an arrow or, swipe to the right or something like that to instruct people to see and go deeper into it. People are there longer on your pictures. They're interacting more. They're being able to discover more, and then thus comment more. And then engagement. Engagement can be difficult too, because you have to tell a person to, hey, stop, look at this, read this, now comment on it. And the posts that I found most engaging relate to exactly what my audience is going through. And again, like I said, it's the authenticity and the transparency related to business that people have really been enjoying, in addition to, the special moments that happen in life that I think just people in my audience who are often family type entrepreneurs can relate to when it comes to the kids growing up and things like that. But a recent post that I came out with was one related to the pandemic and how so many people are getting laid off. I shared a clip from a newspaper of when I was featured, and the headline was, loses job, rides wave of entrepreneurship to build successful business, and everybody's losing their job these days. 40 million Americans alone have no job currently. And that was very relatable. And that actually just exploded and took off. So I'm talking a lot, but I know you guys are talking a lot too here in the chat, which is very fantastic. But more on how to get started. I think try and experiment. Spend most of your time creating really eye-catching images. That's what I would focus on doing. You don't have to be an expert, and that's the beauty of Instagram, the filters, and the idea of, paying attention to how an image shows up and the preview of it and the composition of it and how that ties into then a message is really important too. I would also start to interact with people. If you have other platforms elsewhere, let people know that you now are on Instagram, and do what you can to plant seeds all over your brand, whether that's on Twitter, for example, or on YouTube or wherever, right? Like on YouTube, for example, you can have links up top that people can click on in your cover art. And there you can actually include a link to your other social media platforms. Within your description on your YouTube videos, just at the bottom, just have it be a usual thing, maybe in a template that you offer that has links to your other social media platforms too, just so it shows up in different places. If Instagram is something that you are focused on building right now, then I would, at the end of your emails, just in the PS, hey, by the way, if you're not yet following me on Instagram, follow me here. And I've done that on my emails, and just naturally through just the organic answering of people's emails and having a PS there that's templatized in Gmail, to drive people to my Instagram. It's allowed me to grow my account to 70,000 plus followers, which has been really neat. So little things like that can help you along the way. Just, you got to really try to figure out, okay, how are people going to find me here on Instagram, right? It's not just through your posts, but you'll have to be active in getting people to understand that you exist on Instagram, which is absolutely key. Woo! Beware the Tupperware. By the way, chat, let me know how you're feeling. Let me know if this is so far so good. Tiffany says, Pat, what's your social media strategy that you and your team follow about what to post on the different platforms? How often do you post on these different platforms, and what content? Thank you, Tiffany, for this question. So on Instagram, again, it's not even necessarily about my content. I don't use my normal Instagram feed, like with the pictures and the caption, to drive people to specific pieces of content, because I want it to be so it's definitely like about me and my audience connecting, right? And more about me, so that I become more authoritative, I become more trustworthy, right? KTL, the KTL formula, getting people to know, like, and trust you. I use Instagram to support me to do that. But when I do post something there, it stands out because it doesn't happen very often. And so I reserve that for like really important moments or really important, offers or special deals that are happening, right? Like Cyber Monday, when that's happening, I'll share something related to that. Or, and again, it's not just like an image with text on it, like, hey, Cyber Monday's here, save 20% off our courses or something like that. It's very much, again, an eye-catching image that then drives people to the caption, which I can then use the bio to support the click. That's another hard thing about Instagram, is just how do we get people to click and to interact and to follow through? And using your bio at that time is really important to drive people, because there's hardly any, you can't get people to click a link in a description yet, or in a status update or caption at this point. So using the bio to do that is really key. But when it comes to social media strategy on Instagram stories, that's where we determine, okay, well, what this week, we look at our content calendar and we do have planned ahead of time. So what's coming this week? So this week, for example, we are going to be promoting a webinar for Amped Up Podcasting, which is my Podcasting 201 course, my advanced course for people who already have a podcast. So I know that an email is going out today, for example. And as a result of that, I want to have Instagram stories be a way for me to share more about that, to let people know that this thing exists, to give maybe some supportive posts about that, 3 or 4 posts about why this exists, objections people might have, and those types of things. And then planning those essentially once or twice a day in support of the call to action that's coming next, in addition to some personal stuff that's in between there. I think that works out and is so far working out very, very well. So 2 or 3 supportive posts for the next call to action. And again, I know these things ahead of time that we're promoting because we plan once a quarter what is in our lineup, right? And if there so happens to not be like a promo, for example, then I'll link to other pieces of content that have been coming out during the week, a podcast episode, and share clips of that, for example, or share polls that relate to particular pieces of content that I just came out with on YouTube, and then having people answer those polls and then go, hey, by the way, if you want to see how I feel about this, click here to go to my YouTube channel. Now, you will have to work a little bit harder up front to get to the point where you can get people to swipe up on Instagram stories. That means you can actually include a link if you have a business account to allow people to swipe up to go forward into that link. And that's been working out really well too. But you have to get, I think, 1,000 or 10,000 followers. I don't remember the specific number right now. Also, a big shout out to Vanessa Lau, who is on Instagram. I would recommend you follow her, LAU. She is somebody who's really, really expert on Instagram and teaches very, very great strategies in a very easy to consume. She's more of an Instagram expert than I am, so I recommend you check her out. Let her know I said hello, and if you find her, let her know I sent you, because she's great and she teaches a lot on Instagram and does very well. The guys over at Foundr.com, Foundr.com, also teach Instagram a lot. They were able to build their account to over 1 million, which is really cool. And one thing that we're going to do more in the future, just to let you know and in on some things that we're doing, is we're collecting a lot more success stories in our audience. We're collecting success stories so we can showcase them, because this is very much what I feel our platforms should be for showcasing the amazing people who are in our audience. And so we are collecting hero stories and these success stories, and we're going to be displaying them on our website and collecting them and interviewing them for our podcast, and using social media to do more of that is what I would recommend we need to all do, right? If you have a program to promote, don't just have it be me-centric. Like, hey, look at me and my course. Here's what I've included in it. Here's why I did it. That's a very, very selfish way to approach social media versus here's Lewis, who is a brand new podcaster who took our course. He went from this many followers on email to this many followers, and it's because of the podcast. Here are some tips that he is now offering to the rest of you. And by the way, he took one of our courses, and you can take that too, right? So that's kind of how you can blend in a lot of the success stories that you create, use your platform to showcase those hero stories, and then drive people into whatever it is that you have to offer. And Instagram stories is great because you can talk about these things more often. You have a little bit more room than your more polished sort of grid. Now, if you want some tips in terms of a piece of software that you might be able to use, I'd recommend using Later.com if you want to get really driven to post more consistently, and you can actually plan and schedule posts ahead of time. You might be able to benefit from spending time each week, at the beginning of each week, planning out your content for the rest of the week, and you can schedule those ahead of time. You can actually see what the grid might look like and how these things sort of add up over time. So Later.com allows you to schedule and publish your Instagram posts ahead of time. And I used that for a while, but then my focus was elsewhere, and I just didn't have the time to keep up. This Instagram was something that for a period of time I did have to bend on and go, I'm going to sacrifice not posting on there for a while, and I did suffer because of it. My numbers went down because of it, but that was a conscious decision. That's what I knew was going to happen, so that we could focus more on things like our workshops and our courses and interacting with our students there. So great comments here, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions. Let's see. Let's keep going here. Great content. Cool. Thank you. Linktree. Linktree is a good tool that you can use too if you want to put a link in your bio. So Linktree, linktr.ee, I think it is, that allows you to create essentially a social media landing page so that you can link to that Linktree page from your bio. And then on the Linktree page has all the links to the podcast on all the different platforms, a link to your blog, a link to your offer, whatever it is that you want to do, it becomes just essentially a hub for all the different links because you can only put one link in your bio, if that makes sense. Thank you, Mary, for this confirmation, and Sarah as well. Ooh, yes, Vanessa Lau is awesome. Yes, cool. Thank you for the validation there, team. Appreciate you. The other thing that I think works really well, and I forget exactly what the name of the strategy is, but this comes from Gary Vee, and this relates to some best practices for growth on the platform. So let's talk about growing on the platform. One way to grow is to just interact with people more. The more that you can interact with people, perhaps even on other people's Instagram posts, the more likely it is that you're going to show up and just be seen. So if you're just starting out, a way to be seen is to show up on other people's platforms and comment, and be quick to comment. This is why we want to follow and perhaps at the start get notifications when a person who has a bigger platform than you posts something. You can be quick to leave a comment. Now, you don't want to leave a comment that just is like, cool, thanks, or at first. Having something insightful works really, really well. I've noticed that on a lot of Gary Vee's posts, for example. I'll notice people like Jim Quick, Kwik. He often is very quick, pun intended, I guess, halfway, to leave a very insightful comment that supports Gary's post that will then be quick to follow, but then get a lot of likes because people will then like that. It rises up and people see it. It becomes then like one of the first comments that people see when they open up that post a little bit more. People comment on that. There's conversations happening, and now people are following Jim, right? So I think Gary calls this like like 88 cents strategy or something. I don't know, how to grow your Instagram for 88 cents. And the cents comes from leaving your, what is it called? Your 2 cents elsewhere, right? So I don't know if it's 88 or another number, but Gary called, when you add up 2 cents, like when you leave your 2 cents, right? Like your thoughts, your additional value, right? That's why it's 2 cents too, because you're adding some value there. Hey, Archer, thank you so much. Just dropping a, bruh. Everyone have a great week. You too. But getting on other people's channels on Instagram and commenting with something insightful and doing this strategy every day for a week, you'll see results. And by being quick to reply and leaving something insightful, you're going to actually grow your following just from being involved. And the reason why it's a cents, because it's not like you have to pay 88 cents, but you pay your 2 cents, you offer your thoughts strategically and purposefully within a certain time period every single day on these other platforms. You will grow that way. And I've seen a lot of people grow that way too. Having a content calendar is another strategy that works for growth on Instagram too. So just thinking ahead of time. And what you don't want to get into is what we've often experienced on other platforms where it's like, okay, I have a podcast to come out with, and I just published my previous podcast, and now I'm like, okay, what am I going to even say next? And especially with something like social media where you have to show up essentially every day, it can get very content hamster wheel, like where you are just sitting there wondering, okay, well, what am I going to post today? And I don't know. And you're kind of just like, hey, I haven't posted anything today. I got to find something. And of course, because you're just thinking about it now, it's not going to give you the best support for what it is that you're doing. Some people are really good at that, coming up with stuff on the fly. I'll tell you, I'm not great with that. And I know a lot of people who start social media who often feel the same way. So spending some time maybe over the weekend or on Monday planning the rest of your content for the week, just so that there's some purpose, so there's some connection, so that there's some a starting point, can go a very long way in helping you remain consistent. This is just truthful amongst all the platforms that we use. Another best practice is to experiment with posts too. I know a lot of people who they've experimented with all different kinds of posts, from, revealing something maybe a little bit more personal, and those things work out really well. So then they lean into that a little bit more. I know a lot of people who often will experiment with adding quotes on their pages, and that works really well. So they lean into that a little bit more and make sure that that's something that shows up every week, for example. I know a lot of people who experiment with engagement and different kinds of ways to engage with their audience, and just to see what works. And that's what's cool, again, about social media and posting every day. You don't have to get it right every single time. And again, it's the process and the journey that'll teach you what's working and what doesn't. So continuing to try different things. If you get inspired by another person on Instagram who does something really neat, you can post that there too. I know a lot of people also who are repurposing their content elsewhere and putting it on Instagram, and that's great. However, you gotta make sure that it is something that, although it comes from somewhere else and is originated somewhere else, that when it comes to Instagram, it's still useful, it's still valuable there too. I've seen a lot of people repurpose their stuff on TikTok on Instagram, for example. And again, you have a lot more room for movement and flexibility on your Instagram stories, but on your Instagram feed, you got to be careful, because if it just becomes a dump for all this other stuff that you're doing elsewhere, people on Instagram don't feel like you're creating content just for them. And so you got to be careful with that. Instagram TV, if you have longer videos, works really, really well, because people are on your stuff more. And just like any other platform, when you are allowing for people to stay on Instagram on your channel more, you're going to get rewarded for that. And it can be very difficult to come up with videos just sort of on the fly for Instagram TV. However, if you go live, that can then become something that can get put into Instagram TV. Big shout out to Nicole Walters, who's been crushing it live lately, as well as Shalene Johnson and many other people. I would follow people who go live and just get a sense of how they manage that. And it very much feels like a live setting here, where it's very interactive and you're getting to know people. Instagram also allows you to make it easy for people to submit questions that you can answer to, and it also allows you to bring other people on to have a conversation with as well, which is really neat. And then you can save those, and those become a part of your stories. However, Instagram TV is a little bit different. It's almost like a third sort of platform. I remember when it came out 2 years ago, it was kind of the big thing, and then it went away for a while. But now what's really cool, and thank you for that super chat. Who was that, by the way? Susan Zimmerman. Sue Zimmerman is great too. Thank you for that. Who was that? That was Explanatory Life. Thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. I appreciate you. How are there only 23 minutes left, y'all? We burn through this hour so quickly. It happens every single time. There's not been one live stream in this 81 days that we've been going live where it's just been a dull moment, or and hopefully you're not taking that as like, hey, I'm awesome, I can do this. Like I'm learning, I'm making mistakes, but for some reason we are able to, both of us, connect, and just I can share so much with you that this hour goes by so quickly. And thank you again for keeping up in the chat and things like that. But Mary here saying, yeah, people love IGTV. IGTV is great. What's cool about IGTV is if you put a video that's maybe a minute or longer into Instagram TV, you can put a clip of that video. The first 15 seconds show up in the regular feed, and people will see that. And if you can time it perfectly, it becomes really good, essentially clickbait in a sense, in a good way, or a great teaser for people to go and click and watch that Instagram TV video. And again, Gary Vee does this very well. But the other thing about this, I want you to understand too. And so let me chat with you here really quick, because we got to mix it up a little bit. So you're gonna find other influencers, other people out there who are doing Instagram really well, really well. And it can be very depressing sometimes to see how well they're doing and how little time we have to do something similar. Again, we don't want to compare our channels to others, but it is very, very much a real thing to see other people post so much and create all these different kinds of things, and getting all this interaction and getting so many followers, and then we do something similar, we try to keep up with them, and we're not even seeing any results at all. You have to realize that a lot of these people, especially influencers, have teams of people who specifically are created just to do what it is that you're seeing. I remember going to New York on a SwitchPod, by the way, not a water bottle, but this has the logo on it. This was a product that my videographer and I created, and we were on a media tour. We went to New York. This was a year and a half ago, and we were doing some media runs, and we were meeting with, Gizmodo and a few other cool channels related to gear and photography and such. And we had the opportunity to go visit VaynerMedia. So we went into Gary's office. He unfortunately wasn't there, but we took some nice pictures in his office, met his content team, and I saw 24 tables with computers, people who were there and hired specifically to manage his social media accounts. Like, he has 24 people helping him create images, create videos, create the posts. Like, he hardly is ever in there himself to create those things. He has a say, obviously, but he's in there interacting, because that's what he's good at. And you'll see this is how Gary Vee is able to create 20 posts a day on Instagram of all different kinds. And lately he's been on those, those like little cards that have like an animated drawing of him with like a saying. And then there's his videos, which have captions and all, like, that's his team. He shows up in the comments and is interacting because he knows that's important. And I think that's important too. So don't feel like you have to create 20 posts like he does. Create posts and then interact. And that's the thing that I think we should take away from Gary, is the interaction. Even though he's a big brand, even though he has millions of followers, he still takes the time to interact. And wherever you interact in the comments, those get risen up to the top. and show up. And it shows your community, even though perhaps you're not able to react and respond to everybody, it shows that you are there. And I think that's really important too. If you can comment and be present, that's really key. And I know I could do a better job of that too. And I can do a better job of planning ahead. But when I've done those things and I've made time for this is one of those things that you kind of have to make time for it. It works really, really well. And again, the IGTVs are great for video on Instagram to have people show up and see things. And again, that first 15 seconds can be a great way, almost like a teaser, to then click in to watch. I did an Instagram TV recently that actually had more views than I had on YouTube, and it was related to the pandemic and offering a piece of advice for people who had just gotten laid off. Again, very relevant to the times right now. Another best practice for Instagram is to realize that, and first of all, there's a lot of things that you should be doing. I would follow people like Vanessa and Sue Zimmerman and several others who they have nailed down the strategies from how to use hashtags and how to properly utilize your bio and all these things, right? Your bio should be short and concise. And again, it's about what you can do for others, not about you yourself. So adding all these credentials about you, maybe not necessarily the best thing versus how you can help others, right? It becomes very much a copywriting exercise to write a really good bio, and you only have a certain amount of time and a certain amount of characters to make a connection with people. So that's really key. You can find other people, and again, Vanessa, Sue, there's so many other great people out there crushing it on Instagram. But one of my favorite things to do on Instagram is this, to create real connections, both in the stories. And the stories are great because I can speak to people. It's very raw. That's what I love about it versus the regular feed. It's just flip on the camera, go. I don't necessarily love, and it feels almost inauthentic when I see people who have really beautifully, produced and filtered Instagram stories. I'm like, okay, so you took the time to then edit this and to, make it look so beautiful and then pop it up on here. That's okay, and that works for many people, especially if you're more in a visual brand where you do photography or things like that, and that is obviously important for your stuff. But I almost kind of go, is that real? Is that real life? When I see these really doctored Instagram story videos versus just the raw, turn on the camera and go. And that's what I love about Instagram stories, because it allows me to just connect with my audience in mass, right? It's you sharing with everybody, but it feels very personable. It's a story about what happened and something that went down in the last 24 hours. And I love the connections that I make in these stories, because oftentimes I'll ask for people to reply. Thank you, Republic of Creators. I appreciate you. Your newest, biggest fan. We are a podcast where we interview top video creators to share the success secret sauce. That's really cool. So go ahead and check out Republic of Creators. You just gave us an idea to share on IGTV2. Pat, you're mapping our journey. You're welcome. And again, I'm not perfect here. But yes, and then Mary says, hashtag is another game. Mary obviously seems to have a lot of knowledge in this space as well. But hashtags are important because this is another mechanism by which people can find you. It would behoove you not to include hashtags, and it's one of the things that I can do to improve. I also know, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe here in the chat, when you use hashtags, you'll only be found if you use them within the post itself versus the comments. I think a lot of people want to make their comments, or their post itself look really good, so they will remove the hashtags there and then just do a follow-up comment with the hashtags. But I don't think that registers as like if you just put it in the comment and content itself. I'm not exactly sure, so you can let me know. Isaiah says, do I feel betrayed? Pat hasn't mentioned me. See, this is a good, Isaiah, I just mentioned you, by the way. But this is a good point. Like, people want to be heard, right? People want to be heard. So creating real connections is really key. So on stories where it's not necessarily connecting to an individual person, connecting with them through experiences, connecting with them, understanding where they're at and how you can show up in stories to connect with them is really key. And the more that you can have insight on what your audience is going through, what they might need help with, or what they'll relate to, the more that you can create stories that will then, when a person sees it, they can connect with too. And you got to realize that when you have stories come out, people are going to reply, and they're going to, either like it or reply and ask you questions. Do not leave those handshakes unshook. Although we're not supposed to be shaking hands today, right? Do not leave those fist bumps or those bruhs unbrud, right? So you need to make sure that when you do stories or you open up your messages, that you need to make sure that you're connecting with people there, because people crave, this is a human thing, and especially nowadays, we want connection. And we all have access to this tool called Instagram, where we can create these really interpersonal connected moments with people, right? I talk about this in Superfans. In fact, one of my favorite things to do, Jay Helms, what's up? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. One of my favorite things to do is, and I love this too from Jonathan, I like people who are authentic and don't only post positive stuff in life, because that's real life, right, Jonathan? So I love posting things that are not always the greatest things, because that's still a great teaching moment. That is still a great way to be vulnerable, to show up and show all parts of you, not just the best parts of you, right? But following up with comments is really key. And I think that when it comes to stories, allowing people to realize that you show up there and making time, how do you reply to all these things amongst all these other business related moments that we have to offer in our business? Well, you make time for it. I will, and I have on my calendar about 20 to 30 minutes a day to go into Instagram, because that is one of the 2 platforms I've chosen to be completely active on, Instagram and Twitter. And again, I can still do much better, but I'm focusing my time and effort in there. I have 20 to 30 minutes a day blocked out on my calendar to go in and just reply and interact and talk to as many people as I can. And the reason why I do that is because when a person hears from me, it's a special moment. Not because I'm special, but because people are craving attention, and your audience is craving attention too. So just a simple reply will go a very long way. But here's the secret. We have access to tools within this tool, Instagram, that make the connections even faster and more personal. And that is through video or audio. To create a simple audio thank you to somebody who has replied on a comment, or to somebody who's replied to a story, or somebody who's messaged to you, it becomes a much faster way, and you burn through a lot more comments that way and interactions. Burn being a good thing, not a bad thing. But you can also have it feel more personable. And I'll tell you, people reply 99% of the time when you hit them up with a voice message or a video even. And on Fridays I go on a walk, and I walk my dog Gizmo. I mean, we walk him every day, but Friday I have my walk with Gizmo to specifically walk around the neighborhood and then reply to these comments on Instagram. And I'll reply in a very one-on-one manner. And I don't get to everybody, but I try to get to as many people as possible, because it shows that I show up. And a lot of times, especially when I reply to somebody, they will thank me publicly, and that shares that content with other people too. So I think that's really cool, and it works extremely well. Isaiah says, okay, I feel better now. See, people feel better when you interact with them, and I think that's great. Jennifer says, hashtags in comments do work on IG. I can see this in my insights. Cool. Thank you so much for validating that, everybody. I appreciate you. Cool, good conversation here. We have 12 minutes left. We're going to keep going here, and then I'm going to answer as many questions as I can. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but I like this from Xenia and Vlada. I don't know how you cannot interact on IG. It's like people talk to you in real world and you just ignore them, or what? Yes, I have a whole chapter about this in my book, Superfans. But mind you, I think the bigger your audience is, the more forgiving perhaps your audience is when you don't reply to them, which is why if you're starting out small, this is your big advantage. This is your big advantage when you're starting out small, is to use your small platform to create real connections. And when you can do this in the DMs, it goes even further because it feels more personable. Mention a person's name, go into their profile if it is public, see their latest image, and reference that when you reply back via video or via audio. And it just shows that you're taking even a little bit of time. This was a strategy I used back in the blogger days when I started in 2008 before all these other things came out. I used to hit reply, like people would reply to my blog post and share some sort of insight, and that would be cool. But before I would reply back and say thank you, I would go to their website, because on blogs you would sort of insert your website URL and then you would comment, and that's how you can get traffic to your blog. I would go to their blogs, read their latest post, and then I would go back and reply on my own platform and reply on their platform too, to just share, hey, I read your last post about this. I thought it was really neat how you did that. And it just becomes like a whoa, like, okay, I took the time to read your stuff, and then now you took the time to read my stuff. Like, that was really neat. And that's how I grew quite quickly up front, because I spent time interacting with those people because I was small, and I had a chance to interact with 100% of my audience when I was just starting out. And now I'm at a point where I can't do that. So you have an advantage over me connecting with your audience more directly than I can, because I can only do that for a certain percentage of my audience. You can do it for a larger percentage of your audience. So I would definitely pay attention to that advantage that you have. One of my favorite strategies on Instagram to offer a call to action, such as getting more reviews for books, getting more reviews for podcast episodes, is this. I'll use my Instagram stories or feed or both to interact with my audience, asking them who has listened to the latest podcast episode, or what was your favorite tip from this episode or whatnot. And so people will reply, right? They'll reply back either personally through that story, or they will reply back and in a comment. So this is, again, related to how to get more reviews for podcast episodes, how to get more reviews for Amazon, how to get people to just do more of what I hopefully can see is valuable to them and would help me too. And so what I'll do is I'll have that more general and public post calling out to see who raises their hand to essentially validate, I watched that, or I listened to that, or I've read that. I'm one of those people. And then I reach out to those people individually. So it's a two-phase process, not just asking on Instagram, hey, can you leave a review for my podcast? It's asking people who has first interacted with my podcast. And, you want to phrase it in a way that makes sense, not just like, hey, who has listened to the show, but, what was your favorite tip about this last episode? Or, hey, I featured this person and you're giving them some love too, but then you're also seeing who has listened to the show. And then I'll see who replies to those comments publicly. And then I'll hit I'll hit them up in a one-on-one, in a direct message, and I'll send a video. This works every time. I'll send the video saying, hey, thank you so much for listening to that previous episode and for just commenting and being active in the community. I appreciate you. I hear you. I see you. And if, you had the time, if you wouldn't mind leaving me a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be extremely helpful. No reason, or no worries if not, if you're busy, but it would really help the community and other people find the content too, so we can grow it. And I just, again, want to say thank you so much. 10 seconds to share that message. You've interacted with somebody who has listened to the show. They wouldn't have commented if they didn't listen to it, and likely they're going to be somebody who is a fan or enjoyed it. So you're going to get a better than decent review, or better than average review. And so this is the way that I use Instagram quite often. That works really, really well, specific for helping me. But it also helps others in turn because they're seeing a little bit of interaction there too. So I really love that. And again, building out time in your calendar to have those interactions, to schedule to have that scheduled to do that works really, really well. Elton says, Pat, yes, I saw the same exercise you did for Twitter. That was epic for growth hack. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it works really, really well. The other thing that works really well for Instagram or ads, and should you choose to do ads, that's something that is run essentially through your Facebook account, because you can connect your Facebook account to your Instagram account so that you can get access to Power Editor and other better analytics and stuff. And I know a lot of people who are using ads on Instagram very, very well to target specific demographics, to target specific audiences, to retarget people who have been on their website, who have been on their sales page. It can be very, very profitable. It can be very, very also something that can cost a lot of money should things not work out. So I am not an expert in ads. I would recommend you check out people like Monica Louie from Flourish with Monica, or Rick Mulready. And there's a number of other people who do Instagram ads very, very well. However, it is something that I've used specifically for the purpose of retargeting, meaning I might use email, I might use social media, or my blog, or YouTube, or my podcast to bring people to a sales page to something, right? And then what happens is there is a pixel essentially on that sales page, which allows me to understand, and Facebook and Instagram to understand who has visited there. If essentially the pixel is just like literally a 1x1 pixel that shows up, that essentially fires up and shows that that particular person has visited that page. So I can target people who have seen that pixel, i.e. on that page, in my ads. And I can essentially know that they visited the page, they're warm. I can spend money to retarget them with an ad that can hopefully get them another touch point to see why they should connect and move forward. And oftentimes it is the testimonials that are shown on Instagram and the testimonials that are shown on Facebook that actually convert really, really well. Carousel ads that show a little bit more about what people have gotten as a result of getting into my courses has worked really well. And again, I do that to warm audiences who I can retarget based on people who have visited my pages. And when you are going through your feed and you see somebody who you stop, right? Especially if you've interacted or seen something from them recently. And that is, become very, fairly profitable. And we've had campaigns where we've gotten, less than $1 per lead on Instagram at some points for certain moments in time and for certain courses. And that's proved to be extremely cool. The Facebook tools for IG, if your account is linked, are so helpful. Even if you don't want to run ads, you can post from IG, from desktop, from the Facebook Creator Studio. That's really cool. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that. People sometimes babble on and in stories. Yeah, it's really difficult to, because it seems just like an open channel. I think the big lesson there, and thank you for that share, is just to be conscious about what it is you're posting and what it's going to be like to receive that, right? I think that, what I don't, and what works for you, like where do you connect with people, and pay attention to why you're connecting with that person and the sort of messaging that they are offering too is key. And again, this hour together has been really great. Hopefully that you've been getting value from it in terms of just some tidbits and tips and here and there, and sort of engaging in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, hopefully you're following along in the chat as well. I'm going to keep the chat in here because it's very useful today. Oftentimes for these sort of specific videos, specific lives about certain platforms, I'll cut off the beginning just so we can get to the meat of the content. But hopefully you can see this has been very valuable. And Quaranteam, thank you so much for showing up today and being a part of the conversation. You add value being here too. I see you, I hear you, I welcome your messages, and I welcome your advice because, again, I'm not the expert on these things, but I'm using these live streams as sort of a starting point for these conversations, and I'm very thankful for you. So, yeah, authenticity, right, Mary? Authentic interactions. I think that's where it's key. I like, and my best strategy there is to use the DMs, and it's not, this isn't scalable, y'all. Not everything we do has to be scalable, especially when it comes to personal interactions, right? It is the idea of going to a buffet and feeling how the service is at a buffet versus feeling like what a service is like at a 5-star restaurant, right? We want the 5-star restaurant experience. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have 5-star photos or 5-star stories. It just means that 5-star interaction. And what I mean by the buffet is, like, at a buffet, there's food, right? Like at a 5-star restaurant, there's food. But the food is set up and anybody can go to anywhere they want. And it's not personalized. And although you might have a quote unquote waiter who comes to your table, they're just giving you drinks, right? And they're just making sure you're cool, and they take it and bust your plates, but they're not giving you the interaction. They're not asking you questions. They're not seeing necessarily how your experience is. They just have a job to do because they want to get you in and out and get more people going to the buffet, and they're filling in those lines. Versus a 5-star experience where you're sitting there and you're getting personalization, you're getting interaction, you're getting small little moments, you're getting that little moment where, after the meal is over, you get a little note on the receipt. It is something where you have a person see your glass half empty or half full, and before you even ask for more water, they're pouring that water in there for you too. So it's these little moments that you can create with people on a more one-to-one level, and you can do, and you can actually grow much faster creating those kinds of experiences for fewer people. The final thing I want to share with you is that although we do pay attention to, and obviously we are very obsessed with numbers and growth, and I think the trend lines, that's important, right? Having upward trend lines. But every single person on your Instagram who's following you is a real life human being, right? That's a real person. And you have an opportunity to interact and connect with them. And it's not necessarily about the number of people, but the strength and the quality of that connection that you have. I would much rather have 1,000 followers each who open and follow every post, who comment on every post, versus 1 million followers with, less people who are just there to read and move on, right? I would much rather you focus on creating these genuine connections and using your power of small and using the power of you just starting out to really hone in on who these people are and interacting with them, and realizing that this is not scalable, but this is how you grow at the start. It's going to take more active work before you get into the passive stuff. So, hey, Team Flynn, I appreciate you. Thank you so much today for your time and attention. If you are still in the chat now, leave your favorite tip below and the biggest thing that you've learned, whether it's from me or somebody else in the chat here. I'd love to see and get a sense of what it is that was most impactful for you. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Twitter. Now, Twitter is another social media platform. It's very different, obviously, but there are a lot of similar notes in terms of how we can use it. And I have been most active on Twitter as the first social media platform I was on after Facebook, but Facebook was mostly started for personal reasons back in college when I was in Berkeley, because remember when they launched, they had the sort of university to university to university strategy before they opened it up to the public. But I was a part of that rollout. But Twitter's been very interesting. And I love Twitter more than Instagram for search purposes, to find these conversations that are already happening. It's a lot harder to find conversations happening on Instagram than it is on Twitter. So we're going to talk about that and dive into Twitter a little bit more tomorrow. Thank you so much for the time today. I appreciate you. And yeah, thank you so much. Ryland's favorite tip is using voice messages in the DMs. So easy, right? And people hear your voice, they're surprised. It's unexpected. Not everybody is doing that. Great show, says Just Samson. Thank you so much. Twitter is good to me. That's great. I find Twitter harder to wrangle versus Instagram. Yeah, different people prefer different platforms. But again, just being open and to learning is what's important here. Tondalea, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks, Pat. I have no idea how to use Twitter. Favorite tip, go all in on one social media platform. Thanks, Jonathan. I always learn something new, says Lisa. Cool. Awesome. Team Flynn, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Hashtag Team Flynn for the win. Come back tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. This is where you want to go. patflynn.com/the income stream. And make sure to stick with me all the way through because Friday we're going to do some more giveaways. Over the weekend, we're going to do some website reviews. Like, we got a lot of fun stuff playing this week. Thank you so much, Team Flynn. I appreciate you. And come there tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Stay awesome. I appreciate you.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Thank y'all. Dude, you guys make it so easy for me. Thank you so much. I'm here to help and serve you, and you are in turn serving me. With your energy, your excitement, your comments, your communication, your connections with each other. Just keep it up, guys, y'all. You are amazing. I appreciate you.
Bruh.